Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Friday, November 21st, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about the state of Utah and Republicans across the state and in the state legislature as the Utah House Speaker, who initially came out in full force against the brand new congressional map that Republicans have ahead of them for the 2026 midterms that undeniably gives Democrats the opportunity for an additional pickup in 2026 by a guaranteed margin. They've taken a Donald Trump plus 20 district on the Republican side in Utah's 4th district and have drawn it into a way that makes it Kamala Harris plus 22 percentage points. This district has seen a radical transformation and one that undeniably benefits the Democratic Party and automatically gives them that seat in the next cycle. Now, the way that this map was implemented was very unconventional. It was not done by the traditional process that you might expect across the state legislature that oftentimes, like we've seen in Texas and North Carolina and Missouri, where the Republicans in those states put forth a new congressional map signed into law by the governor, ensuring Republicans would gain additional seats for 2026. But in the state of Utah, it was Republicans who implemented their gerrymander at the beginning of the decade. They took a year which Democrats in 2020 came within 1% in Utah's 4th district. They drew it 2 years later to be an overwhelmingly conservative district. Now, a bit of the caveat here is that in 2018, when Ben McAdams defeated Mia Love in this race by 0.26%, this district in particular was a driving force in Utah's Proposition 4, a proposition that would outlaw gerrymandering across the state. But amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, Republicans in the state legislature decided to repeal the Citizens Passed referendum, amending what existed in the Constitution and stripping the Independent Commission of their power. And 2 cycles later, Republicans had been able to operate in these congressional districts with little to no change across the board here. These districts, again, were drawn to be more Republican than the state itself. But when it came down to what the judge most recently appealed and decided was that Republicans violated the Constitution in ignoring Proposition 4 and repealing it at the beginning of the 2020 legislative session, and ruled that there must be a newly drawn congressional map by the Republicans in the state legislature in order for a map to be implemented in 2026 to the degree that this judge deemed fair for the Democratic Party. And so Republicans, as expected, drew a congressional map that did tone down some of the political power in Utah's 4th district and Utah's 3rd district. These districts quickly became, Trump plus 2 and Trump plus 7. But even then, those are still conservative districts. In a red wave year or a normal year, Republicans would be winning those districts, and the overall composition of congressional representation in Utah would be the exact same. Only maybe in a blue wave year could Democrats get 2 out of the 4 seats here, but in normal and red-leaning elections, Republicans would have a 4-0 advantage. And so the judge declared that that was the wrong way to go about it. And so the judge, knowing that the Republicans in the legislature would never give them a map that is fair, went to the Democrats who sued in this case and asked for a newly drawn map. And thus, it was granted. The judge implemented the new Democratic map that ensured Democratic representation in Utah's 4th district, and in the state, you will find that in the 2026 midterms, Democrats, if we actually take a look at the 2026 elections in Utah, this district with Burgess Owens, who is the Republican in this race right now, it says that it's going to be Blake Moore, but a lot of people expect it to be Burgess Owens who retires from this seat as resulting from it. It looks like he'll be having to jump back over to that 1st district. This district already has the race ratings of every single group here as solid for the Democratic Party. And so now this new map is going to be implemented in a way that ensures Democratic representation across the state. And I think that's going to be quite interesting when you take a look. Look at this, 2027 to 2033 boundaries. You'll see that the districts, results changed dramatically. It was Trump plus 20, which now in this cycle voted for Kamala Harris by 23 points. And even in 2020 voted for Biden, and even in 2016, working under that, Hillary Clinton would have won this county by 21 points. That's how Democratic this county, in very few times where the Republicans would have been able to win district-wide, and that was with Mitt Romney in 2012, and even then, barely, compared to Mitt Romney's 50-point margin across the state. But again, taking a look at, what the aftermath of it has been, I've given you the context that I think is necessary But the Republicans swore up and down that they would not accept a Democratic drawn map, that they felt that this was an assault on their political power in a state that they absolutely dominate in across the state. Republicans have the governorship, have supermajorities in both legislative chambers. Utah is a red state through and through, but ultimately, the Republicans announced just days ago, yesterday actually, that the Utah House Speaker told the public they will not contest this map. And so we thought that maybe Utah would elevate this all the way to the United States Supreme Court, make an argument that, this judge is wrong in the way they went about it. But the Utah House Speaker has made this decision consciously, it seems, that because this decision came so late, it came 10 days ago, 11 days ago, the time at which you could appeal it to have any type of movement to ensure that this map is changed for 2026 has come and gone. And so while Republicans are still, I'm sure, open to the idea of redrawing the map in 2028, it is not possible to do in 2026 simply because Republicans have not filed an appeal, and that boundary, that deadline has passed. And so this map, guaranteed in 2026, will be implemented for the Democrats. They will have an additional seat out of Utah, and it will negate whatever Republican gains have been made in a state like North Carolina or in Missouri. In North Carolina, Republicans targeted North Carolina's first, turned it into a district that, in 2024, you'll see was quite good for the Democrats. But when you look at the presidential margin, Donald Trump won it by 3, but certainly winnable if Josh Stein is winning it by 9 points, right? The lieutenant governor's race is going to the Democrats. Secretary of State's race is going to the Democrats. But taking a look at what the new boundaries look like, in 2024, only Josh Stein wins the district, and only by 2. Trump wins it by 11. And every other race goes to the GOP, including the Attorney General's race, which a little bit of lore, actually, out of North Carolina. I know it's a bit off track here. What's very interesting, Republicans have not won a North Carolina Attorney General election since 1896. It has been over a century since Republicans have held the North Carolina Attorney General's election, and there are very few races that are similar like that. But in North Carolina, it seems Democrats are constantly winning these races. So really, really interesting. But getting back to this point, about 2024 and what the map looked like in North Carolina and what it's going to look like in 2026, when you look at that first district, there's a Democratic incumbent, but the race ratings are likely and tilt for the GOP. Not great for the Democrats here. It's a near guarantee that this district flips to the Republicans. And so when you look at what Utah is really counteracting, it's maps like this in the state of North Carolina. Now, I brought up Missouri because Republicans also drew that 5th congressional district in a way that ensures that this is now a Trump district. Remember what it was in 2024. Kamala Harris won this district by 24 points. Well, when you take a look at 2024 under the new boundaries, Trump won it by 18. So it is a complete 180. All this blue turns into all this red across the state of Missouri. It is really difficult to see how there is any conceivable pathway to Republicans, losing this race. The last time a Republican represented this district was in 1949. And even before then, Democrats held on to it since 1931. So really, it's tough to see exactly, just how damning this is for the Republicans, for the Democrats across the state. Now, it is going to be a question if Democrats are able to successfully sue the state of Missouri on this new map here. We will see. I think it'll be interesting. But as of now, Republicans have really screwed over the Democrats in this race. But again, that's what Utah's map could, in fact, counteract. And so Republicans now losing a seat in Utah, one, also removes any idea that Democrats would even have to compete for that seat as well. In 2020, Democrats were investing a lot of money in that 4th race because it was a race they cared about deeply, and even then, they still lost the race. But when it comes down to how much actual money was thrown into this race, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to find it exactly here, but if you go onto Open Secrets and things like that, you will find Democrats invested a lot of money in this race. And it was one that came down to the wire, 1,000%. It was decided by roughly a point, but being very genuine and honest, about why this race, arguably, if Republicans had maintained the map from 2020, there would have been no consideration of throwing it out in the first place. Republicans and Democrats had to fight for this seat. But Republicans had the upper hand because Utah's 4th district was still a very conservative district. Even in 2020, you're going to find that, I guess we're not going to be able to see the exact results from the past because it's not the exact district. But when you take a look at the election results of 2020, you'll see that Donald Trump won that district quite handedly. It was only that Burgess Owens, had a competitive race, and Ben McAdams was popular beyond that, there was no real reason to believe, this district was one that Democrats could win in any future reality. And just thinking about, Republicans got very greedy in the state of Utah, and it backfired tremendously. And now Democrats won't have to spend $1 in the Utah race. The only competitive part of it is going to be that primary, and that's really going to be it. The rest of it is going to be, a cakewalk for Democrats across Utah's 4th district. There's not much here, to put it bluntly, that Democrats have to worry about, and especially since the Republicans know that they would lose this appeal. And it might be lost on you, okay, why are Republicans not appealing this? Why is it that Democrats are just walking all over them in a state where Republicans have total dominance? They control the Supreme Court, they control the legislature, the governor's mansion. Why? Well, the reason is that the Utah Supreme Court already saw this case. They agreed with the lower court's decision. It wasn't a direct appeal, but the Supreme Court had said that this was going to be within the boundaries of what this judge had made the decision on. They wouldn't intervene, they wouldn't usurp authority, they wouldn't do any of those things, probably because they agree. And it's because Utah, in their, the way at which they approach judicial politics, actually is very merit-based. Yes, partisanship plays into it, but Utah's a Republican state. Almost every single person that comes out of a law school in Utah that decides to practice in the state and is successful in politics generally is a Republican, because Republicans are the ones who make these decisions about who gets appointed, how they get appointed, what type of credentials are taken seriously. But also, these are constitutional scholars that are judges. These are people that know the inner workings of the Utah Constitution in and out and have principles and moral values that they will abide by regardless of who is asking them about their opinion. In direct contrast with the Republicans in the state legislature in North Carolina, in Missouri, in Texas, that willingly tell their constituents that they are for free and fair elections and then draw out all of their Democratic constituents. I mean, it is the most ironic thing in the world, to be quite honest with you, the way at which we've seen it across these red states. But in Utah in particular, I have been pleasantly surprised, just as someone who's looking at this and saying the objective answer across the board is that gerrymandering is wrong. But if one side is doing it, the other side is going to retaliate, and you can't really be mad at them for that. Republicans started this in the first place. I think that's what is also lost on this for a lot of members of the Utah GOP, but I think many of them privately know. And I'm sure many of these judges do too. And I think it is the inspirational reason as to why you find that even some of these top figures in Utah GOP politics know that if they try to make the case to the Utah Supreme Court that is as knowing of the news as we are, is as understanding of the circumstances and dynamics that surround redistricting in the middle of the decade as we are, that they will not rule in their favor. Because Utah's Supreme Court is not like the Florida Supreme Court that will bow down to DeSantis because they wouldn't be there without him. It's not like the Republicans in the legislature in Texas that will bow down to Trump because their state Senate districts are larger than congressional districts and they see Trump loyalty as a means to an end. That is not the case. And so these Utah Republicans who, seemingly did not file this appeal, one, they say because of time, two, I think it's because they knew they would lose, and maybe a combination of both. Why rush something that you're just going to lose anyway? It's a fair point. Maybe make that argument and find a more compelling one for 2028, yada, yada, yada. But as it stands right now, this is undeniably a win for the Democratic Party because it no longer puts this map in limbo. It near guarantees, no, in fact, it does guarantee, that this map will be implemented in 2026. And the Republicans understand it. They knew that this is where the Democratic Party is going to succeed in this newly drawn 4th district. And it's going to be done in a way, or the 1st district. And it's going to be done in a way that, when you take a look at the 26 midterms, Democrats can likely have a progressive in this race, a leftist in this race. You could find a Democrat who is 100% party line vote, unlike what this old map necessitated, which was a Democrat who was pro-life that could win over large swaths of Republican voters. Now, you wouldn't need a single Republican vote to win in that district. And so it will be interesting to see as we track who decides to run, who decides to get involved, who decides to make this race theirs. Because as it stands right now, a great sign for the Democratic Party that Republicans are giving up in the state of Utah, ceding ground to Democrats, not just in this state, but arguably nationwide, as we see similar cases pop up all across the country, and Republicans essentially powerless in their response to new maps that now benefit Democrats across the board. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the top left of the screen, there's also a Discord server if you go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2026 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.